Nigeria today, a land buzzing with energy, a symphony of cultures, ancient traditions echoing in our modern streets. This is us, today. But to truly know who we are, to understand the strength in our roots, we must journey back, way back, to when the earth knew our footsteps, before history knew our names. Back through the years, rewind the clock, to a time when our story was already being written, deep in the soil, flowing in the rivers, beating in the hearts of our ancestors. This is where our story begins. Imagine this land, our land, long before them call 'em Nigeria. No be empty bush, no. This place been they burst with life. From the dry, sandy winds of the far north, where powerful kingdoms traded across the giant Sahara Desert, to the deep, green rainforests in the south, hugging the mighty river Niger and Benue. These rivers, like blood veins, carried life, trade, and stories. And people? Our people been done day here for thousands of years. Archaeologists, people where they dig ground to find old things. Them find tools and art way old well. Like the knock culture for central Nigeria. Imagine them they create amazing terracotta figures. Beautiful heads with stylish hair from as far back as 1500 BC, some say even earlier. Some evidence even suggests they figured out how to make iron tools, all by themselves. No be copy from anywhere. This now around 500 BC. This land wasn't just one people, one language. It was home to hundreds of different tongues, different vibes, different ways of life. From the edges of the Great Lake Chad to the winding creeks of the Delta. Communities forming, villages growing, each with their own unique flavor. People had been living in settled communities here for a very, very long time. Some sites in southeastern Nigeria show human presence from as early as 9000 BC. Now, our people not just they waka up and down. We had leaders, we had systems, we had government. Take the Oyo Empire, a real powerhouse in Yoruba land. The Alafin, that was the king, the head of it all. But it wasn't a one-man show. The Oyomisi, a council of 7 powerful chiefs, led by the Bashorun. They kept the Alafin's power in check. If the king became a tyrant, they could send him an empty calabash or a pair of parrot eggs. And by tradition, he would have to commit ritual suicide. And Ife. Ife, the spiritual heartland, the place many Yoruba people believe creation started, where Oduduwa established the first Yoruba kingdom, and where kings, even today, trace their right to wear the beaded crown back to. The Oni of Ife. A figure of deep spiritual respect and authority. The Benin Kingdom. Another giant. The Oba was the supreme ruler, a figure of immense power and spiritual connection, believed by his people to be a living god. A divine king, and their capital city, Benin City, was a marvel. Some early European visitors in the 15th and 16th centuries described its vast size, its great walls and moats, and its wide straight streets, a highly organized urban center. And the art. The world-famous Benin bronzes. Intricate plaques, lifelike heads, detailed figures, telling the stories of their obas, their queen mothers, their warriors, and their deep beliefs. Around the 1450s, one oba stood above men. Eware the Great. This man was a true visionary, a formidable warrior, and a great builder. He massively expanded the kingdom's territory, rebuilt and fortified Benin City, strengthened the administration of the palace. And it was under his patronage that the arts, especially bronze casting, truly blossomed, reaching new heights of majesty and sophistication. He is credited with many innovations, establishing royal rituals, founding grand festivals, some of which still echo even today. Way up north, across the dry savannas, the Hausa states, Kano, Katsina, Zaria, buzzing city kingdoms, each ruled by its own Sariki, their king. Their markets were legendary. Major hubs on the Trans-Saharan trade routes that stretched for thousands of miles, connecting West Africa with North Africa, the Middle East, and even parts of Europe. They traded goods like leather, textiles, cola nuts, and salt, in exchange for gold, horses, and other valuable items. And further east, around the vast Lake Chad, stood the ancient and powerful Kanem-Borno Empire, a real giant that controlled trade and territory for centuries. Their ruler was the Mai, and interestingly, in Kanem-Borno, the Magira, or Queen Mother, often held significant political power and influence, advising the Mai, and even taking charge during times when there was no king. Head southeast to Igbo land. Things were often different here, but just as organized. Many Igbo communities no get one big king where they rule everybody from the top. Instead, power dey with the people, in the villages and towns. Villages often govern themselves, like mini republics. Decisions were made through discussion and consensus, in councils of elders, respected titled men, and even age grades. That is, groups of young men and women will get specific responsibilities to the community, like public works or defense. Everybody feel get voice. Some areas, though, like the ancient kingdom of Nori, had a highly respected spiritual leader, the Eze. His influence spread far, not through war or force, but through peace, ritual purification, and spiritual authority. Life back then revolved around family and community. People often lived in large family compounds. Think of it like a mini village for one big extended family. Yoruba houses were often built with rooms around a shared central courtyard, a space for cooking, for children to play, for telling stories under the moonlight. Igbo compounds too might get several houses for different parts of the family, all connected within a larger enclosure, creating a close-knit environment. Even Hausa homes in the north were designed for large, often polygamous families, sometimes with beautiful, intricate decorations on the mud walls. Everyone had a role, a contribution to make. Men often cleared the farmlands, hunted, fished, or were warriors defending the community. And the women? Our women were powerhouses. Especially among the Yoruba, women were deeply involved in trade, managing bustling markets and creating beautiful textiles, like Ashoke and Adere, with incredible skill. Igbo women too were vital traders, farmers of their own crops and renowned pottery makers. How did children learn? Mostly by watching, doing, and listening. Elders were the libraries, telling stories filled with wisdom, sharing proverbs that taught life lessons. That was school back then. Skills like farming, weaving complex patterns, forging iron tools, shaping clay into pots, all these were passed down carefully, from master to apprentice, from parent to child, generation after generation.
Feel the rhythm of the iron.
Our style? Unique and meaningful. The way we dressed, the beads we wore, the intricate hairstyles, all told a story about who you were, your family, your status, where you came from. Yoruba people were famous for their stunning woven ashaoke and tie-dyed adire cloths. Benin nobles and royalty were adorned in breathtaking coral beads and richly woven fabrics. Hausa people were known for their flowing robes, often dyed with deep indigo, and their distinctive headwear. Igbo people expressed themselves with beautiful Yuli body painting, creating temporary designs on the skin, and wore elaborate threaded or braided hairstyles. And food. Food was life itself. Fresh, natural, straight from the farm or the river. Yams, pounded smooth, nourishing millet and sorghum, a variety of leafy green vegetables, fresh fish, and sometimes bushmeat. Food was often shared together, eaten with hands, with joy and community spirit. For our ancestors, spirituality wasn't just for special days. It was woven into every part of life, every action, every thought. Many of our peoples, across different lands and languages, believed in one supreme God, the ultimate creator of all things, known as Aludomere to the Yoruba, Chokwu or Chineke to the Igbo. But this God was often seen as so great, so vast and distant, that people usually connected with the divine through other closer spiritual forces, deities who managed different aspects of life, or through our respected ancestors, who had passed on but were still considered part of the family, watching over and guiding the living. Take the Yoruba, for example. They call the supreme being Olodumare. His divine power, his Ashe, flows through many Orishas, spiritual energies that are like ministers of God. There's Agun, the powerful Orisha of iron, creativity, and war. Shango, the Orisha of thunder, lightning, and justice. And Oshun, the Orisha of the river, beauty, and fertility. To understand the will of the Orishas and get guidance, people would consult Babalawo, priests of Ifa, the great oracle of wisdom and destiny. Among the Igbo, the Most High God is Chukwu, the Great Spirit. Allah, the Earth Goddess, is hugely important. She is the guardian of morality, the source of fertility, and the owner of the land. People lived in close relationship with Allah, respecting her laws. Ancestors were deeply honored, and Dibias, who were healers, diviners, and spiritual guides, helped connect the living with the spirit world and interpret messages from the ancestors and other forces. In Hausa land, before Islam became the dominant faith for many, people followed traditional beliefs, often called Magu Zanchi or Buri. These practices involved honoring a wide range of spirits, known as Iskoki, who were connected to nature, ancestors, and various aspects of life. Festivals were the heartbeat of community life everywhere. Think of the New Yam Festival in many southern and middle belt communities, a massive, joyful celebration for the harvest, filled with gratitude, music, and energetic dancing. And the masquerades? Wow! These weren't just people in costumes for entertainment. Masquerades were often seen as powerful spiritual beings, ancestors returning to visit the living, bringing blessings, enforcing social rules, and teaching important lessons through their dramatic performances. And our art, truly world-class, bursting with meaning and spirit. The ancient Nok terracottas, with their unique style, dating back over 2,000 years. The incredibly detailed Igbo Ukwu bronzes, so fine, so delicate, with intricate patterns, discovered from the 9th century, showing an amazing mastery of metalwork. The lifelike Ife heads in bronze and terracotta, capturing human dignity with such skill. And of course, the powerful and iconic Benin bronzes and ivory carvings, telling stories of a great kingdom. These weren't just objects to be looked at. They were alive, with spirit, with history, with the incredible skill and deep culture of our ancestors. Forget any idea that our ancestors just sit down for their own small corner, isolated from the world. The lands that became Nigeria were a super connector, a hub of activity. Imagine massive trade networks crisscrossing the continent. The famous Trans-Saharan trade routes, ancient highways of commerce, linked the Hausa states and Kanem-Borno with North Africa and from there to the Middle East and Europe. Caravans of camels carried goods like salt, textiles, leather products, and precious kola nuts northwards, in exchange for things like horses, glassware, beads, and books. And inside our region, rivers like the Niger and Benue were watery highways. And countless markets, big and small, connected different kingdoms, towns, and peoples, allowing them to exchange everything from food to crafts to ideas. And it wasn't just about buying and selling goods. Our people had established ways of talking to each other, sending emissaries between kingdoms, making treaties, and resolving disputes. When goods traveled along these ancient routes, ideas traveled too. New art styles, different ways of building, new words for things. Even new beliefs and spiritual practices would spread from one place to another, mixing and mingling, creating an even richer cultural landscape.
Then, towards the end of the 1400s, a strange shape appeared on the southern horizon. Around 1471, the first European ships, Portuguese caravels, bigger than any canoe our coastal peoples had ever known, slid across the waves and dropped anchor off the shores of what we now call Nigeria. And from them came men with pale skin. At first, their arrival was mainly about trade. They wanted our pepper, ivory, finely woven cloths, and other local goods. In return, they offered things like coral beads, brass and copper manillas, and metal tools. Guado, the port for the mighty Benin Kingdom, became an early point of contact and exchange. Oba Iware the Great had recently passed, but his successors, like Oba Ozolua, continued to engage with these newcomers from a position of strength. But even in this early trade, alongside the pepper and ivory, a dangerous commodity was sometimes exchanged: human beings. Now, various forms of servitude already existed within our societies. People captured in local wars, those enslaved for committing serious crimes, or individuals pawned for debt. These systems, while often harsh, were part of existing social structures and usually didn't involve being shipped thousands of miles away to a completely unknown fate. This new European demand for people, for labor in lands far across the vast ocean, it started small, almost hidden within other trade. But it planted a seed, a tiny bitter seed, of a great and terrible sorrow that was to come. This trade in human beings didn't just explode overnight into the massive horror it became. It grew, bit by bit, like a creeping sickness. Old rivalries and conflicts were now increasingly fanned and intensified by this external demand for captives. The Europeans, for the most part, stayed near their forts and ships on the coast. It was often African middlemen, driven by these new incentives, who ventured inland, sometimes raiding villages or trading for captives, to bring down to the coast to meet the waiting ship. Some African rulers, chiefs, and traders saw in this new demand an opportunity to acquire European goods, especially firearms, alcohol, and textiles. These goods, in turn, brought them new wealth and power over their rivals. Alliances between different African groups began to shift. And something else, something deep inside our societies, began to shift, to be twisted. Remember those powerful oracles, like the great Ibini Ukpabi at Arochukwu, which many Igbo and neighboring peoples respected for dispensing justice and divine guidance? Or how traditional laws and spiritual beliefs guided community life? Slowly, insidiously, as the demand for captives grew ever higher, ever more profitable, some of these sacred systems started being corrupted. Old rules were bent or deliberately broken. Accusations of witchcraft, of breaking ancient taboos, or other disputes that once might have been settled within the community through reconciliation or fines, could now become a death sentence, or worse, a sentence to be sold away forever. Spiritual systems meant for guidance, healing, and justice began to be used by some as tools to condemn, to capture, and to profit from the suffering of others. And it wasn't just some of our own people. The Europeans, too, used their religion to try and justify what they were doing. They often claimed they were civilizing, supposedly heathen peoples, or saving souls, even as their actions involved chaining, branding, and brutalizing human beings. This weaponization of belief, by those within our societies and by the strangers on the coast, it added another terrible layer of pain. Another way to break spirits and tear communities apart. And so, the journey into a long darkness began. Families torn apart without warning. Communities raided in the dead of night. The cries of the captured, the anguish of those left behind, echoing in the forests, lost in the wind. The loss of life, even before they reached the dreaded ships, was immense. From the violence of capture, from the brutal trek to the coast. The loss of freedom, the stripping away of identity, the beginning of a wound so deep it would bleed for centuries. This wasn't just trade anymore. This was a storm gathering, a storm that would change our world forever.